This video covers exactly what you need to do to collect data for MeadoWatch, from signing up for a hike through getting us your data. The first step is to sign up for a hike using a booking calendar that's linked to from our website. This allows us to restrict the number of MeadoWatch volunteers we allow on the trail each day, and we've always done this to make sure that we don't contribute to overcrowded trails and detract from the enjoyment of other visitors to the park. In the age of COVID-19, this is even more important, and we are additionally asking you to hike in pairs or alone only. When you get to the booking calendar website, pick the trail you want to hike and go to the date that you want to hike on. You'll notice that there are times associated with each date, but those are just placeholders that let us limit the number of hikers on each date. You can hike at any time during the day that you signed up for. So first click on any available time. Then simply enter your name and email address, check the box to indicate you're a human, and confirm your booking. You will receive an email confirmation right away that will allow you to cancel or reschedule if you need to. You can see from this map that you need to plan your drive to the park on the day of your hike differently depending on which hike you're signed up to do that day. If you're hiking the Reflection Lakes Trail, enter the park by the Nisqually entrance. If you're hiking the Glacier Basin Trail, enter the park by the White River entrance. At the gatehouse, show your entry letter stating you are there to volunteer and you will be allowed free entrance to the park for the day. We will email you a signed entry letter that you can print out after you have passed the orientation test and submitted your paperwork to us. The map also shows you where to park for each hike, either the Reflection Lakes parking lot or the White River Campground, otherwise known as the Glacier Basin Trailhead. It is not yet clear whether volunteers will be able to camp on the night before or after a hike, as has been the case in previous years, so stay tuned on that. If camping is possible, it will likely only be at the Longmire Volunteer Campground on the south side of the park. This is what one of our volunteer handbooks looks like. It contains detailed instructions for how to get to each of our plots and notes on identifying species and phenophases. Usually, it's a physical pamphlet that you receive at orientation, but since we're going virtual this year, we will make digital versions available on our website. If you're a returning volunteer, please use your handbook from last year. These maps, which are found in the volunteer handbook, show the locations of the plots along each trail. There are 11 plots along the Reflection Lakes hike, which actually starts on what is called the Lakes Trail, connects to the Skyline Trail, and finishes on the Paradise Glacier Trail. The Glacier Basin hike goes straight up along the Glacier Basin Trail and has 17 plot locations. There should be a small round survey marker, either red, orange, or yellow, placed right at the edge of the trail at each plot. Early in the season, though, some plots may still be snow-covered, as in this photo, and we can't place markers until the snow has melted. Later in the season, markers may become accidentally dislodged, hidden by dirt, or removed by well-meaning or curious visitors. We will do our best to replace any missing markers, but we also provide photographs, detailed descriptions, and GPS coordinates for each plot in the handbook, so you should be able to find the plot locations even without markers. When you arrive at a plot, stand facing the side of the trail that the description indicates the plot is on. Position yourself with a survey marker between your feet. Be sure to stand on the trail. Don't ever step off the trail. Besides avoiding damage to the vegetation, this also avoids compacting the soil itself, which can make it harder for water to flow through it and for plants to grow. If you can't find the survey marker but you're sure you're in the right place, that's okay. Just stand where the description indicates the plot location is. Next, stretch out both your arms to the side. This is what you're going to use to estimate the length of the plot. Then reach one arm straight out in front of you toward the plot. This is your estimated plot depth. When you make your observations of phenophases, you should include everything growing within this rectangle. We know that if everyone, of course, has different arm lengths and wingspans, and that is perfectly fine. We accept these differences in how different people will measure the plots as the price we pay for not having any large permanent markers around our plots that would be unsightly and detract from everyone else's enjoyment of the trail. If you are on the shorter side, you should feel free to include plants that are on the edges of your estimated plot in your observations. This is what the top of one of our physical data collection sheets looks like. You'll be able to print these out from the website. Just be careful to print the correct one for the trail you're hiking. At some point before you start collecting data, please be sure to record your name and the date. If you're hiking with a partner, you should write down both your names on the same data sheet. We only want one data sheet per hiking team. And since we're studying phenology, or the timing of events, we can't use your data if we don't know when you collected it, so the date is essential. We also ask you to record the start and end time of your hike, but you shouldn't stress out too much about that. We do this partly to help the park understand how many volunteer hours are contributed by you wonderful people each year. As an example, let's imagine that you've just arrived at plot 10 on the Reflection Lakes Trail. You've already recorded your names, the date, and your start time. First, check whether there's snow in the plot. We ask you to write Y for yes, N for no, or half for about half snow covered. Let's say it's late in July and the plot is totally melted out. You'll just write N. Now the datasheet will tell you exactly which species you need to look for at each plot. So in this case, you know that you're looking for bracted lousewort, broadleaf arnica, glacier lily, Sitka valerian, and subalpine lupin. And imagine that you see everything that's depicted in these photos in front of you. You can pause the video now and try to figure out what species and phenophases you're looking at before continuing, as a test before you take your actual test. Okay, the first species on the list is bracted lousewort, and you can see from the photo all the way on the right that there's at least one individual here that has buds at the top of the raceme and flowers at the bottom of the raceme. So if that's all you see, you'll circle Y for bud and Y for flowers and N for fruit and seed. Next, broadleaf arnica. That's the species in the photo all the way on the left. The most obvious stem is clearly carrying a fluffy seed head, but there's another stem below it that is fruiting. So if that's all you see, you'll circle N for bud and N for flowers and Y for fruit and seed. Next, glacier lily. While you were paused, hopefully you noticed that there's actually no photo of a glacier lily here, and that could totally be. You might get to a plot before a species emerges, in which case you won't see any vegetation at all, or after it's done for the season, in which case you may or may not notice a plant just by its foliage. Or it's possible that for whatever reason, that species isn't appearing in that plot this year. Although these are all long-lived wildflowers, individuals do sometimes die. No matter what the reason, what we want you to do is circle N for all the phenophases and move on. Okay, fourth on the list is Sitka valerian, and that's the plant that appears in the fourth photo from the left. Sadly, this particular plant has clearly been chomped on, probably by a deer, so if it had an inflorescence, that's now missing, and you, of course, can't tell what phenophase it would have been in. Here's where the herb column comes in. Just write Y for yes, the flowering parts have been eaten by a herbivore, and circle N for all the phenophases. Finally, subalpine lupin. The second and third photos show three distinct phenophases: budding on the top of the raceme on the left, flowering on the bottom of that same raceme, and fruiting on the raceme on the right. So circle Y, 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 N for that species. You may have noticed that there's one additional plant visible here that's not on the original list, Cascade aster. Sometimes, just like individuals disappear from plots, other species we weren't aware of being in the plot in the previous year might come up this year. If you notice a focal species that we monitor on the trail you're hiking, in a plot where it's not listed, there is a space in the datasheet for you to add it and your observations. So in this case, you'd write plot 10, Cascade aster, and note that it's budding, flowering, and fruiting. However, this is an extra contribution that we absolutely do not expect you to make. So if you didn't notice this plant, or you noticed it but you weren't sure of your identification, that is totally fine. The basic task is just to collect data on the species that are listed for that plot, and once you've done that, your duty has been fulfilled. Once you've collected your data, we want to get it from you. You have a few options. Probably the easiest thing to do is fold up your physical datasheet and slide it into one of our collection boxes. For Reflection Lakes, the box is located in front of building L112, the Employee Lounge at Longmire. This is behind the Wilderness Information Center building. For Glacier Basin, the box is located right at the beginning of the trail, below the map display that's pictured here. Alternatively, you can mail us your form using the address on the bottom of the sheet. And new this year, you can enter the data yourself using a Google form. We'll link to that on our website. Here are some key do's and don'ts for data collection with MeadoWatch. First, if you don't finish the hike, either because of weather, because of snow conditions, or for any other reasons, that is totally fine. Just note which plot you turned around at. If you skip a plot, maybe because you couldn't find it, again, please let us know in the notes. If you did manage to get to a plot to collect data, please do not leave any blanks, with the exception of the herbivory column and the notes column, which are optional. We realize that you may not always feel confident in your species or phenophase ID skills. However, we cannot use blanks, and we cannot use question marks in our analyses. You, standing in front of that plot on that day, are the only expert there is on what you see. So what we want you to do is use your training, make a judgment call, and circle Y or N for all species and all phenophases at the plots you get to. We also want you to know that absences or no's are just as important for our understanding of these plants as presences or yeses. So if you're hiking early or late in the season and you don't see much happening, your data are still totally essential. Don't forget, we want only one data sheet per hiking team, so you will have to agree on what you see if you're hiking with a partner. Don't touch the plants. As another reminder, that can not only damage them potentially, but also interfere with their development and cause errors in our data collection. And if you don't see a marker at the plot, let us know and we will try to fix it. That's all. Have fun out on the trail.